Friday, real quick, wanted to give you a market update for Oklahoma City. As a realtor, I have access to a special program called Market Stats. Being an ex-trader, I tend to view the real estate market through the eyes of the stock market. And just like you shouldn't try to time the stock market, you probably shouldn't try to time the real estate market. You should look at the patterns and trends that are in existence right now and see if that's a situation that you're really willing to engage in a transaction on. So real quick, we're going to look at the entire MLS, which is basically the major Oklahoma City metropolitan area, which covers a large swath of territory. The territory that I cover in particular ranges from Edmond down to Noble, from El Reno over to Shawnee. We're talking a huge geographic territory with a huge data set. When I'm looking at metrics, I like to look at the max. I don't like to zoom in on the micro trends. I like to look at the macro trends. I'm not sure if I can move my head around. Can I do that? Oh, I can.
Right now, kind of hung up just a little bit. Oh, I moved the map. I didn't know I could do that. No way.
Let's get up here, over here in the blank spot. Let's put it there. First, let's look at supply. I'm an economics dork. I like to look at supply first, then I like to look at demand, and then I like to see how that has affected prices. When we're looking at month supply, I like to look at the max amount of data, which for the current tools take us back to 2011. First house I ever purchased was back in 2001. So for me personally, that's when the real estate market started. Interesting fact, if you look over here, see this W right here in the middle? That is a trading pattern, which typically shows the end of one trend and the beginning of a new trend. And when you invert that into an M, you can see over here back in 2011, we had the second half of an M, which ended that trend and started this new trend. So be on the lookout for M's and W's whenever you look at patterns. It tells you a big change is coming. All right, real quickly, let's look at supply. You can see back during the COVID days, it fell to 0.9 and 0.8 months of supply. Basically, that is asking how long would it take for us to sell every single house on the market. During COVID, it fell all the way down to 2 weeks. If you look in the golden age of real estate for Oklahoma, you can see typically our supply ranges from 3 to 5 months of inventory. What's important about this is inventory tells you what kind of market you're in. There's a balanced market, there's a seller's market, and there's a buyer's market. Back in 2001, when I purchased my first house, properties were sitting on the market for 60 and 90 days without a single showing. Sellers were having to pay people's closing costs. First-time home buyers were out of the wazoo. My wife and I had our down payment covered by a bond program. We paid a $500 earnest money check, and the seller paid all of our closing costs, and the seller gave us a discount on the price of the house. So for $500, we stepped into a mortgage payment. Crazy. Those types of situations are still possible today, but not as probable. When looking at the market now, notice that it went up to 3.8. It has taken us all the way from 2022 all the way to the start of 2025 to hit back to the good old days of real estate in Oklahoma. Notice that we're headed down. I'm predicting that we're going to have a little upswing, and then we'll have another little downswing, and that's a new M that's going to start a new trend. The question is, what kind of trend is it going to start? I have a prediction for you today. So now that you can see supply has continually been on the rise, the cold of December and January hit, supply has kind of plateaued out a little bit. We all know what's going to happen in spring. Supply is going to go straight up. Let's now look at demand. What is actually happening in the market right now? One way to look at demand is to look at days on market. Days on market, and you can look at average and you can look at median. I like to look at median because it gets rid of the anomalies. A lot of people like to look at the average because it shows you a pretty chart. So let's show you a pretty chart.
This is a pie chart describing my favorite bars. And this is a bar graph describing my favorite pies.
Let's go back to median. If we look at the days on market, you can see that during COVID, anybody with a real estate license and enough brains to put a property onto the market, it was going to sell fast. The typical amount of time back then, the median, notice that's the middle point. The middle point back during COVID was 3 days in the first hit, and then the second time it hit, it fell all the way down to 4 days. That's the middle. I know for a fact there were houses back then sitting on the market over 90 and 120 days. And 3 was the middle. That shows you that your typical home was selling in 5 minutes. Crazy, crazy times. Those times are over. As supply has risen up and consumers have more choices to choose from in the state of Oklahoma, it has started to take them longer and longer for a house to sell. Right now, the middle point is 31 days. Your average is 50 days. So somewhere between 30 days and 50 days, it's going to take your typical traditional real estate agent to sell a house. Now, my wife and I, we use a program called 72 Sold. We are still selling 80% of our inventory in approximately 3 days. So our clients don't have to time the market. So what does this trend line show us? This shows us that at the current inventory levels, properties are sitting longer and longer and longer.
Hey Dingleberry, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that button down there. I need you to hit the button. No, seriously, hit the button.
So the supply is headed up and days on market is headed up. How is that going to affect other things? Before you make your prediction, let me show you a couple other metrics real quick. Another way to measure demand is called shows to pending. How many times does a realtor have to show a house before it goes under contract? In our current market conditions, it is taking 7 showings for a house to go under contract, typically. We have another metric called shows per listing. Right now, your typical house in Oklahoma is getting approximately 3 showings per month. So if it is taking 7 showings to sell a house and you're only getting 3 showings per month, do you now see why it's taking a lot of folks over 30 days to sell their house? Makes sense, doesn't it? So if we look at the shows to pending, you can see that we were plateaued for quite a while. There's that M pattern, there's that the W pattern, there's the M pattern I told you about, where you have kind of plateaued where it takes 7 or 8 or 7 or 8 or 7. It's taking 7 to 8 showings for a typical house to go under contract. And the trend is always your friend. It's going to continue to do that until something major changes. If we look at the shows per listing, we are actually headed downward. This means that when you put your house on the market right now, it's not going to get as many showings. That's supply. That's demand. What do you think is happening to prices in Oklahoma based on those pictures? Let's go over and take a peek. Sales prices. Notice sales prices have been going up, 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 up. They hit this, then they fell. They went back up. They hit this, they fell down. They went back up, and then they fell back down. If you look at the mountaintops, that's what we call a ceiling. If you look at where the minimum was, those are called floors. So this is the current tranche that we're in right now. The market is trying to get up to a median sales price of $275 but right now it's 267.5, or it was 267.5. It fell down to 254, and now it's headed back up. I predict that it's going to go up to that 267, and then it's going to fall back down. That's the new ceiling that we're trying to break through. If you pay attention to the news and you pay attention to what's happening on social media and you talk to your friends and family, everybody is uncertain right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. First question, is Trump going to make it to the January 20th inauguration without getting? Question number 2, once he gets in, what is actually going to happen? There are a lot of people who are optimistic and they think the world's greatest economic boom is right around the corner. And then there are other people that think the sky is falling. I predict until January 20th, we're going to be in a plateau. So if you like the current market conditions, now's a great time to sell or buy a house. If you don't like the current market conditions, wait till after January 20th and see what happens. That's what I have for you today. Peace.